Little bit of a change of pace today because I've had a lot of queries from schools that have got the original 3D printer that we had, which was the FlashForge Inventor II SE, the little purple one that we had out for a while, which was a great little printer, but is showing its age and showing limitations in what it can do compared to what is available now. Having said that, it's still a really, really good little printer. And in terms of a pure PLA type printer, does a fantastic job. And I would recommend it to any school that was looking at buying a real cheap little starter. Your only problem is that it isn't available anymore. So why do you continue to go away? So the little inventor that we've got here today, and because we put that out as our first 3D print kit, there are quite a few of these items out in schools. So the whole idea today was see if we can give you insights into how to keep these things going. A few things that I think you should be looking at doing so that you can keep them going in the long run. They will eventually wear out. The 3D printers that we've got aren't tools that last an infinite amount of time. They are semi-domestic type products, so they're not meant to last forever. But if you treat them nicely and they don't get moved around like the stem.t4l ones did, because they got kicked from one end of a truck to the other with some of our nastier couriers. They didn't do the nicest things to these poor little things. So we had a few little failures that should not normally happen. This one that I've got on here, we're going to have a look at today, I've been using for about close to 5 years now. Now, I probably don't hammer it as much as a school does, but it's been carted around to demonstrations and everything else all over the place. So it does see a fair bit of wear and tear. Now, the interesting thing is parts, I'll talk about later on, what I think you should be looking at getting if you want to keep them going. They are starting to get harder to get. Bilby still does have a number of parts, and you might get some from the US or from China, Taiwan. I can't remember where they're actually built. I think they're China. And it would be worthwhile getting a few parts to keep them going, but then you'll probably end up with one becoming the spares. At some point in time, you're going to want to replenish them. The standard one at the moment is the Inventor 4, which is the one that this 3D print doctor is primarily geared towards, but we'll be looking at this little inventor today to see if we can keep it going. So what I'm going to kick off with is the first one here. I'm going to swap it across. So unspotlight me and bring up if you can spotlight the FlashForge screen, Stu, that would be great. That's the one I want. Yep, perfect. And what we're going to go through here now is simply the leveling side of things, and it doesn't always come up, but some of the DCOs got onto this quickly because it's one of my bugbears, that if I'm going in and I'm actually leveling the print bed, calibrating is the other thing to call, and you then just go through to the normal leveling, it'll now go through the heat up cycle and it goes through. The advantage of the Adventurer 4 over the Inventor is the fact that the Adventurer has a heated bed, so you're able to print with more filaments. One of the advantages with the Inventor is that it doesn't have a heated bed, so therefore you can only do PLA, which I would consider one of the few, if only, filaments I would use in a school, especially in a primary school. Prototyping wise, it's all you need. You don't need ABS or PETG. It's just the sort of thing that is not really necessary. But when you get the Adventurer, you do have that versatility. So it means you can extend the sort of things you're going through. Now, what this is going to do is go through and come up with the nozzle will heat up, and it does that because it expands, and we are looking. Now, this first screen that's come up is screw the 3 nuts under the platform counterclockwise until you can't tighten them anymore. I will state categorically right now, never, ever tighten up these bolts. Leave them. If it was almost level and they come virtually level out of the crate when they're new, I have got these out of the box and pressed print so many times that, and it just prints. Don't ever do this. I have done it probably once because I had a strange printer and I needed to get a reference point. But it is a total waste of time, so just don't do it. We tried to get this out of the firmware, but the FlashForge just kept it in there. We couldn't get rid of it. So go OK, and it says, have you done it? You go, yep, I've done it. I've been a good boy. And then just let it get to the next stage. And then cycle through the leveling procedure as it gets presented to you. Just do that as per normal. The little sensor will come down and it will detect it and get it pretty close for you. The only thing that I would ever say that you need to do and check is that you don't have a little blob of filament on the end of your nozzle. That will tend to upset the leveling because it won't let the, it'll actually push the bed down when the sensor is touching the bed, if you've got a big glob on it, and you will never get it leveling on you. So you do have to put yourself in a position where you're not actually doing it. So it's already leveled because I'd already did that level, and I'm just going to go through and cancel that on the way out and get rid of it. Now, an interesting thing, and I do need to restart it. Okay, are you there? Right, now I'm going to do something really weird. I had a school just recently that down at Alexander Park, and they had a bunch of these. They had about 10 of them. One of them, the sensor on the little survey that flips down, stopped working, and they weren't getting any results whatsoever. Here's the trick to be able to actually, you keep using that printer because it won't come up. Go through the first cycle, and this one's already moved to the second position, but it won't matter. Let it get to the first and go through the motions of leveling the print bed. It will fail straight up because the sensor doesn't work. Here's the trick that you can do. Turn the printer off. And when you turn the printer off, and I'm going to do it now, okay, it'll be at the right spot for the print head and the nozzle to where it needs to be for printing correctly. Now get yourself a piece of paper, or you can do it with a credit card, but it's a little bit thick, so a piece of paper is better. And then go through and slide it up. Make sure that you're not touching the print bed with your hand, and you're better off taking the lid off as I've got here, and then slide the piece of paper. We're doing a real manual print feed. Slide it under the nozzle and adjust the wheels, a little like we're kind of doing with the Adventurer, but it's all software driven. Adjust your wheels so you get that drag with the paper between the nozzle and the print bed. And then, as I'm going to do right now, can you turn the other camera on, Stu? And what I'll do...
I can't turn the other camera on. You've got to do that from Creative T4L.
Oh, I've got to do that one there. Don't I have it on? I do have it on. Or do I have it turned off here?
You've got to switch. You can only have one camera at a time per account.
Both cameras are up. Unspotlight the purple one. Can you see me in the other camera? Oh, I've got to switch cameras to do it.
That's
okay,
the thing,
I'm a little slow. That's all right. Why didn't it allow me to switch cameras? Settings, device, and we're going to go to, you're already on that capture. Maybe it's this one. I know why it's doing it. Settings, device. I'll work out what devices I'm using in a minute, boys and girls. Okay, so here we are down, and I need the video capture. Right, now we got it. Yeah, perfect. Okay.
So we can't have you in the shot.
Oh, I don't need me. I'm unimportant. Okay, so here I am with the, I'm looking down on the top of it so that we've got a few views that we can see. If you can spotlight this one on the top, it's good. I can now move this quite easily and manually around because the motors or the stepper motors aren't stopping me from moving it. So I can move it over to the left, adjust the little wheel underneath, use the paper underneath it, move it to the right. I can move it to the back in the middle, and I can get that level. Then what I want you to do a test, because it will take a little bit of time, but it keeps your printer going. On the 3D Print Doctor webpage, I've printed off that little test pattern. It's the one with the 6 squares that you print. What am I doing? Re-slice that for the Inventor, and then print that off until you can see those 4 to 6 squares printing nicely. You might have to print it 4, 5, 6 times and just adjust the nozzles. If it's printing and it looks like the print is globbing, you're too far away. If you're printing and it looks really thin or not at all, then the nozzle's too close. So adjust the knobs underneath accordingly to give yourself some space. And you can do it on the fly and you'll all of a sudden see, oh, it starts to print a lot better. If you hear the printer chattering, what's happening is the filament's trying to get through the nozzle. The nozzle's too close to the print bed and it can't push the filament through to the print surface. So what you need to do then, you've got to open it up to give it space. That's a dead giveaway that the nozzle is too close. So if you ever end up with the actual sensor on the little print leveling dying on you, you can keep your printer going if everything else is working nicely. And we got that printer up at Alexandra Park working, and now the guy up there, Cameron's doing a really, really good job and got all of his printers working. So there's a few little things that we can actually work on to keep our printers going. I'm going to turn this back on now so that we can start moving on and having a look at a few other things. And we're going to get our hands pretty dirty with these printers and have a look at how we can do it. I actually might leave it off for the moment and I'll have a look at what we're doing here. You know, I do need to turn it on because I need to get rid of the filament out of it. One of the main things that happens with these printers is that the filament can break. And when it breaks in 2 places. It'll break up here. And as you'll notice, I've got a funny little arrangement. I'm going to show you something later on. The worst place for it to break is, or the second worst place for it to break is below the top of the print box here, your print head, but it's inside because your filament's just sort of sitting in the middle of nowhere. I'm trying to do that. It's sitting in the middle of nowhere and you're trying to push the filament, your new filament, down on top of it, and you can't get it to work. That's a good one. Happened to be last week. So the only way that you can get around that is you've got to pull your printer apart. It's the only way. Now, the parts are available to you. I've got a checking set. The best one is this little Allen key. There's a number of the Allen keys that come with the system. I've got to work out which camera I'm using. The large Allen key is the one that works. Now, depending on the model you've got, you will find that the 2 Allen head screws at the top are Allen keys. Most of the ones that are out in the wild have an Allen key also, or an Allen headed screw in the front one. There's 3 only that you've got to take off. However, some of the front screws, you will need a Phillips head screwdriver in this one at the front. They do vary, but most of them are right. So let's do this one. And you'll notice that I've got it turned on. The voltage is so low inside of these things, do not be afraid. They're okay. I'm going to undo the 2 little screws at the top. And I am just going to snip this off to get rid of it and get it out of the way. And then I'm going to get the front one as well. Now, another thing that you will find is on the newer Inventors, or the latest edition, what they did was, and I need to get that, oh, I'm pretty good. What they did was they used some 2-sided tape. Let me get a pointer. I'll use the swizzle stick. And they put 2-sided tape between the ribbon cable and this little flange on the side here. You will need to get, and the best thing to use is the scraper that comes with the kit, and slide it between and separate that so that this print head here can slide straight up and off. So I'm going to pull that off and just put it down the front, put it somewhere, and don't lose the 3 screws. You can get away with using 2, but I like them to be there. Now, here is the print, and I'm going to cut it off at the point where it would have been. Okay. Now, if I've got a bit of filament that I'm trying to push through that hole when the housing's on, 9 times out of 10, it's going to miss. I've got to get it right on the top, and there's nothing guiding it there, even within that housing. So you're going to end up with problems. So here you are with this particular thing. It's in the way. You can't get rid of it. You can do something which will work sometimes for you. If you've got it sticking out like this, what you can do is cut it off, And then you do a preheat. And what the preheat will do is heat up the nozzle so it will soften the filament. And then you can use the little swizzle stick to push it through. Now that is, what would I call it? That's a layman's way of doing it. I myself don't do it that way. I go further into the printer because I find it is more reliable. But if you can do it this way, it will actually get you out of trouble and you don't have to dismantle your printer too much. Set it up on top of the filament and you can just see where I've got it sitting on top, and then push slowly once the heat has got to a point where it is melting the filament, and you should be able to carefully push it through and get it all completely out. Keep going until the swizzle stick, as I call it, it's the little clover leaf, I think some of the DCOs were calling it, they've coined it. I like it, it's like a swizzle stick to me. If you don't know what a swizzle stick, you haven't had too many cocktails. Push that through and that will then solve the problem of that filament breaking inside, above the motor, but inside the housing. So that will be the way you get rid of that one. The way I get around it is I don't do it this way because unless I want to try and do it quick and nasty and I think it's going to work. What I tend to do more often is I remove the motor, and the motor is this section at the back here. You'll notice that the motor has a cable connecting it to the front circuit board, and I have it turned on, and this I've done a million times, will not affect it. You can just get in here and remove that plug and wire. Won't affect anything. It'll still allow it to even heat up. It does a great job. Now, what I'm hoping to be able to do now, that's heating up, that's good. I'm going to lower this camera down because I think we might be right. Now, what I'm going to do is here, you need to be able to get into the printer, and we've got two screws that we need to remove either side of the motor at the bottom. You will find that you can slide the Allen key in and it will engage with the top of the hex head. Now you will see, I think from there you can see, it's sliding to the left-hand side of the servo motor and it's almost directly under the silver connector of the main board where the plug goes in. And then you can simply just undo, oh beauty, I can get rid of that. And then you can just undo that screw. Yes,
move that ribbon cable a little bit. Maybe that will help us see it a bit better.
Okay, can you see where it is?
Yeah, if you move your arm a little bit more as well.
I'll chop it off for you, okay?
Yeah, from that side, pull it that way.
There you go, right, okay. So we're just going to undo that. Leave it in there and try and make sure that it doesn't stick to the head of the Allen key. Thanks for that, Stu. Now, the next one is a trickier one to get. And I do know that when Lee Bilby was doing these, her husband could get this screw out, but she couldn't. She could never work it out. I eventually worked it out by having a play with Chris one day. You will find that on the right-hand side of the sensor here, it's good, you can see hopefully, there is a little spigot where the screw is. That's the screw for the top cover. Put the Allen key in, the big one, to the right of it, and just a little bit out, and you'll find that it'll also then engage with the Allen head for the motor. And again, we're going to undo that as well. And you only have to spin it around a few times for it to undo. Now, once you've got that done, you should be able to remove the motor. Still have to get a bit more. Now, what's holding it in this particular instance is the filament that I've got in there. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of juggling. There we go. Now I've got it out. So now what I'm trying to simulate, let me move this so that you can hopefully see it. So, yep, that's good. It looks like you can see it. Here's the filament, and this little silver section here is the top of the hot end. Now what happens here is that I have often found it'll break off near as most of the time just above that hot end. And this is the worst one that ever happens. It'll break off at that point. Now you get this when you've got filaments that have been absorbing that moisture, that hygroscopic part of these filaments, and they get brittle. If you leave them over the holiday period, they absorb all that moisture and humidity, especially in our summer, and they get brittle. And the first time you come back, all of a sudden you touch the filament at the top and it snaps. 9 times out of 10, it'll snap down there. And then you, what is it? What's the movie on Netflix? Schitt's Creek? Yeah, one of those. So that'll be the problem that you have. Now, again, swizzle stick time. If you heated it up, you should be able to just grab that on the top and then push that through. And as you can see right now, hopefully it's coming out, I'm able to push that down and get that right out there, and underneath, you should start to see filament coming out, and I can get that out completely just by pushing that through, but at least it's giving me a good start. I'm only up to 45%, so it's not going to go too far. So I'm going to get rid of that and do a filament change. It may have had a dummy spit when I took the motor off. Yeah, I reckon it's had a dummy spit because I've taken the motor off. Now that I've got that pushed in, I should be able to get to the next stage and get that completely cleared up. Now, if you've got a really bad blockage in your hot end and you ever have to change over the hot end, that is a major piece of work. These aren't nearly as easy. The Adventurer 4s with that clip-in, clip-out nozzle is just amazing. These take a lot more work to get them out. Now, I'm going to swap the camera around a little bit, this other one, so that you can see underneath and get a bit of an idea of what's involved to get the whole thing out. There. I'm going to go lower so I can get a better angle. Now, this is one of the things that you do as a last resort. It's not easy to do. It does require you to bring in spanners and other work to be able to do it. So I'll just show you quickly. I'm going to get my phone and put a light on so that hopefully it might brighten our day up a little bit. Yeah, right. Okay, now we're starting to see what's going on. So I'm going to swap over. Can you see the other camera, Stu?
I have got both of them side by side in the same
Oh,
size camera.
perfect. Okay, let me see if I can just get that a little bit better. Right, okay. So where you see the little bit of filament coming out, which I've just cleaned off, come on, focus again, that is the nozzle. You've probably had a bit of a look and you've seen the nozzle. Zooming instead of focusing, but it should get there. Focus, focus, focus.
The silver thing.
The little silver thing, that's right. Now, this is what's called an all-metal hot end. It's one of the things that I really stipulated that we need. Yeah, now we're focusing up. Come on. Right, okay. So the little silver thing, which I'm going to try and do remotely, which is almost impossible to do with a camera because your left is your right, your right's your left. That little silver nozzle is the nozzle. You will also notice that there is a black part square that you can see around. That's the heating block that heats up. You do need to be very careful because on the right-hand side of your screen, you'll also know that there's a little white knob coming down there. That is the wire connecting to the hot end that heats it up. That's that resistance wire. And it will make quite a bit of a difference to the connection and heating up. If that gets damaged, your hot end will not work. So you do have to be careful if you ever get to this stage. Now, there are some screws. There's one screw that you need to remove to be able to get that off, but you do also need to remove 2 wires, and it's if you've got the other screen up, it's these 2 wires on this side, which is on the side you can't see. the two white wires. Interestingly, it doesn't matter which way you connect these if you take them out. They're just resistance wires, and so that's good. We don't have to worry about it. But where they come out of the green block on the side of the board is where you put them back in if you've got to remove your hot end. Hot ends are $155 from Bilby, and they are the whole thing, and that's an all-metal hot end, so it's a good purchase. I would consider, if you want to try and keep your fleet of inventors going, that you buy 2, maybe 3 of those as backup spares, because of all the things that muck up on the inventor, it's that expensive part, which is unfortunate, but it does happen. Everything else pretty much has lasted. And it was funny that sensor, that's the first sensor that I've had go since I've had the inventors, and it was a school that just got in touch with me. So these 2 wires need to be detached. You then, and I think from memory, let me just check. Yep. And what you need to use is the smallest Allen key that comes with the kit. Now, as we did before, we went to the right of the spigot that holds the cover on. Now we go to the left of it, and there is one little grub screw that's holding the hot end in place. You undo that. You undo the 2 wires and then carefully pull it out. I'm not going to do it now because I've just realised that I'm heating it up and it's going to be too hot to touch. You wriggle that out. Remember the orientation for when you put it back in, because you can't see anything. It's all black and it makes it really, really tricky. When you get it out, you can undo it, you can pull it apart. At the very worst, I have actually used a 1.5mm drill to drill out filament that is in the top part of the hot end. Keep unscrewing it all, and even screw the top part of the little nozzle, or better still, replace the nozzle. If you can clean out the tube at the top of the hot end, that's the longer stainless steel part, and just the top of the nozzle, you will find that you can then get the rest of it done by just heating it up and going. If unfortunately, and I think I've said this in one of the other videos, if you have had a go at trying to clear a nozzle repeatedly, now I'm talking 5, 10 more times, and that happened to quite a few of the inventors when they were out in the STEM kits. Schools would try and fix it, send it on to the next school, they would try and fix it. What happens to that PLA is that it starts to harden, and it will get to the point with repeated heat cycles that basically anneals. It will get to the point where it gets so hard, it's like glass, and you will never, ever remove it, except if you drill out the nozzle, and that's a trick. There are 0.4mm nozzles available on eBay. I have had mixed success, and for a $5, $6 part for a nozzle, and these are just standard nozzles, I would just buy a few nozzles and replace the hot end, or replace the nozzle to see if that gets you out of trouble. Once you've got that, reassemble the hot end and the block in place. It does take a bit of wriggling and it does need to seat down. Tighten up this front Allen key nice and tight so that it just pushes into the nozzle part of the hot end, and it just squeezes it up against it, locking it into place. But make sure it's all the way up so that way it won't muck up your leveling. And then the 2 wires on the side need to be reattached, and then you should be right to go. Turn it on, see if you're ready to go. Now, what I'm going to do now is simply put the motor back into place to show you how that works. Do that one, and I will actually turn it off. Okay. Now, I've left the screws in here, so it makes it easier for me to actually just screw in. And what I usually do is just take a few turns to get it started in each position before I tighten it up. Do not tighten both up or one up, because it misaligns the other side, and you will find it is then difficult to get the second screw to start. So you get one almost all the way in until it sort of just gets to the head. Come on, there you go. I'm doing it left-handed, which makes it really, really difficult. Let me try it this way. Right, okay. got a feeling I might have. Yeah, I've taken the. I know what's happened. I've dropped one of the screws. I'll find it later. Get both of those put together. Plug in the. Plug in your wire. You can sometimes take it out without that wire being detached. I'll just do up this one here, and then we're going to turn it on. And then you're off and running again. So they're the really major things that you can do to fix. 9 times out of 10, your problem with the Inventor is the filament getting caught or breaking at the wrong point, either above where the filament goes into where the motor is, which is also the where the mechanism for the feed is. So it'll sometimes get in. One thing that I didn't show you, and it's a little annoying, I didn't show you there, you will sometimes get them breaking off inside that mechanism here. When you take the motor off, you'll be able to see filament pieces, fragments in there. Clear that out, blow it out. That's also somewhere where you can get caught out, and then you should be able to find that it'll stack. It'll actually go through. Reassemble your printer, because if you do not have, right, I'll find them later. If you don't have the cover on the printer, you will find you get an error, because the cover of the printer is used for these micro switches on the side to set up its homing. So I've done it a number of times, and I've been in situations in schools where I've been fixing it, forgot to put it back on, and then it rattles itself to pieces. You've got to turn it off, put the cover on. So make sure you put the cover back on, turn your printer on, recalibrate it, rehome it, do a level, try and do a filament feed, and then you should be able to get your filament fed in there nicely. So that's basically the biggest things you're going to end up with your printers. Now, what I'm going to do now is go back to the normal camera, which will be hopefully settings, devices. I don't want that one. Let's go back to the meetup. Okay, can you spotlight the meetup for me, Stuart? Okay, things that I think you should be looking at purchasing to keep your fleet going. Here you've got print beds for the Inventor 2. These are about $9 each. I'll put a lot of links, I'm still putting some more links on the webpage in the resources section. Get yourself some of these. At a pinch, you could use blue masking tape, get the 2-inch masking tape from Bunnings or wherever, and use that as an alternative to these print beds. It will be the cheaper way to do it. Make sure that when you put it down, you don't have any gaps between the strips of masking tape. But masking tape works reasonably well in conjunction with 3D lac. The other thing that you will find is these are starting to get difficult to get. However, what I do is a little bit different. Now, you will have noticed when I first started this that I didn't actually have the full one-piece nozzle between the back and the front. I have a little one here that goes through, and then I use a smaller one, which I tend to, oh, there it is, which I then cut off. So I cut my tube into a few pieces and let the filament wander around. One thing is I can see what's going on. 2, I find it easier just to pop this out when I'm doing the printing or the filament, when I'm feeding the filament in. But what I do is I actually have made, and I've put this on a link, where is it? Okay. I've made this little guide, and it fits onto the top of, I did this in Onshape, and it fits into the back of the cover. So when you put it on, goes on here nicely, goes over the top. Get in there. fits in there and guides it over nicely, giving you a nice curve as it goes over the top. I find myself, I like this system. It's available for you. You can print that off on your printers and use it if you would like. It's a really good way of guiding it in. The other reasons why I do it is the next phase is large print spools rather than using the 600-gram spools that fit in the back of the Inventor. 1 kilo spools are significantly cheaper to purchase than the 600 grams, but the problem you have is they don't fit in the back. What is available to you? These are available for purchase on the Bilby site for $28. Don't do that. Jump onto the Thingiverse. There are little roller guides. There's a bunch of different versions, very, very similar, if not the same as this. It's just a modified version. You might have to get some little ball bearings. It'll good exercise for your kids to work through. And then you can actually put this on the back of the filament, put it over, run it over the top of the guide with a short thing, and then you can run 1 kilo spools. 1 kilo spools are so much cheaper to actually use and pay for, and they work really, really nicely on the back of your, and you'll see it coming out. It's a little bit more exposed. The one thing that you are missing is the little filament run out. That's about the only thing that's a bit of a downside. However, you could get very creative, and I'm not saying you actually do this, but I tend to do things like this. There's nothing stopping you from drilling a hole in the back of the case, a hole in here, so that the filament could go through the sensor. Once you've got that going through the sensor, you're in a position where if it runs out, it'll actually tell you and it'll stop the print mid-cycle, and then you can restart it as well. Having said that, I do find that the Inventor does not recover from mid-stop prints as well as the Adventurer. The Adventurer does quite a good job of recovering and getting a nice print going that has a filament run out. So it's actually an interesting way to go. Now, the other one that I wanted to do before my phone runs out of battery, let's turn this off, is virtually everyone that I've been out to have a look at with the Inventor, even the Adventurer and everything else, is how to remove an object off the Inventor's bed. The Inventor has a magnetic print bed, and you can remove it. To save yourself leveling over and over and over again, you should be able to print 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 prints without ever having to re-level it if you do this one thing. Remove the print bed. Now, the way I did that, it's so easy. You put a thumb either side, your fingers go underneath, there's a little lip here, and you simply pull it out. Next phase is this print bed. It's a flexible print bed. It comes off. And when you've got a print on here, just like the Adventurer, you flex it and your print will pop off really, really nicely. Now, I had a question from a teacher only this last week on the Air Adventurer. The print bed on the Adventurer is really sticky when it's brand spank new. And the issue there was they were I don't know what they were printing, but they had a whole pile of circles on the print bed, but they were quite thin. And in one section, it was very, very thin. So that section there, from what I deduced, was that the leveling, the print bed needed to be level because it was too thin. The issue was that it was very difficult to get those discs off the print bed because they were very, very thin. If you ever get experience that, and I've had that on the Adventure, it sticks so hard, it's hard to get those first lot off unless you've got some depth. The way you can get the very, very thin stuff off, you will need a scraper, take it off, but preheat the print bed before you try to remove them. It will soften the filament, give you the opportunity to get the spatula, the sharp edge, underneath it, and then you should be able to pry it off. It might leave a little bit of filament on there. I've got a print bed that has got some mess on it. This one actually is quite messy. You can see there's bits of filament left on it. It will muck up a quality print. The way you get around that, have a few spares of these sitting around, and then away you go. Now, you can buy these from Bilby with the magnetic base, with the print bed material on it, or you actually get the print bed, you remove this and you replace it because it's a two-sided tape job to be able to put that on. When you're putting them back, this is the real trick. Hopefully I'll be able to see it. There are two raised knobs at the back, and if you have a look at the print bed, it's got two notches. They line up. Make sure that you line them up at the back and then snap it down. It is very, very easy to have it sit up on top of one. And I've seen this with a school where they were trying to print, and I said, your print plate, your removable plate, is simply not sitting flat. It's sitting on the back here, and it's so easy to do. Because when you're looking at the black, I know with my old eyes, I really have a lot of difficulty with the contrast. Kids will just chuck it in there if you let them do. So really check that the notches line up and it's sitting flat. The other thing that I do all the time with these and with the Adventurer, I clean this surface. I will blow it off. If there is a tiny piece of filament sitting on top here, it will misalign this and you will get a weird print. So make sure that both surfaces are really clean before you put it back together, and then very carefully just slide it back in, home it back in there, and you've got the next one will print. You won't have to level it again. Makes life so much easier. How are we going for time? We're quarter of an hour earlier, over. The tools that you will need to get your print head out or your hot end, you will need a shifter and the little spanner that comes with it. The spanner actually removes the nozzle. You will need a shifter or a spanner on the square heating block to be able to dismantle it from the shaft of the hot end. That'll be good. Other things that you need, the little brass metal brush is a really handy little thing for cleaning off the nozzle. I tend not to use it. I'm a little bit weird. I just dive in and remove it with my hand. I seem to have asbestos fingers so it doesn't burn. These little side cutters, they're a very thin side cutter, but they've got an angle on them which makes it really cool for removing support material because you can dive in. They're not easy to find. I found them a little while ago. Bunnings had them for 5 minutes and I haven't seen them at Bunnings forever. You've got to dive in and have a look. They're side cutters, but they've got a real thing. And the 3D printing, Bilby hasn't got these either. You've got to go to one of the other places to see if you can find them. And I think you might even have to go to the US. It's rather easy, but these are really, really good. And I guard these particular ones with my life. They're very, very good. Now, what else did I have? I think we're almost done. Was there anything else on the main page? Let me dive in and have a bit of a look. See if I've forgotten anything. Okay.
You've got a comment there from Sian. I was finding that the big spool wasn't turning properly and feeding the
Whoops, hang on.
filament.
I changed the volume. Where are we? Say again, Stu?
Sian's just saying I was finding that the big spool wasn't turning properly and feeding the filament.
Is that when it was sitting on one of those rollers here?
Because she was having exactly the same problem as you were demonstrating how to fix. And she's going to be doing all of those different steps tomorrow.
Have fun with doing them. If you get really caught out, I'm back at work on Thursday after lunch. We could have a chat then, Sian, so that'll be interesting. So let me know with that one. The all metal hollow, the black filament tube, I've done that. Make your own rollers. The little guide is there ready to go. It'll be sitting in the resources section. Now, well, I'm going to do what I should have done 5 seconds ago and swap over to present. I'll share the screen. No screen. Let's get rid of that. There we are. The 1 kilogram spools, have a look at those. The Inventor, blue red tape, maintaining the print bed, done that. Breakages, hot ends. Okay, we've pretty much done everything that I wanted to try and get through today. And if you have anything else, because there are some weird, wonderful little ones that are there, at some point in time, there will be a point of no return, unfortunately, with the Inventor. but they are pretty good little printers. They're pretty reliable if you treat them nicely. They are a part that moves, or they're a machine that moves a lot. There's a lot of moving parts, and they can wear out. The only other one that you may find occasionally is you might get a misalignment with the, why have you done that? You may get a misalignment with the rails at the top. They may get out of whack. If ever you get there, I will do a quick little video that I'll add to this one on how to fix that. I'll chuck it in here. It's, again, very, very simple to do, and I'll give you that one. But that doesn't happen now nearly as much, that they're not being moved around like they were with the stem.t4l lending library. When they were getting put around all over the state, they were getting knocked about, and we had to fix those up. If you've got them at school, got them sitting there, they're quite good. Print with the head on, print with the door closed. I've taken the door off so that I could show these things, or I would have necked myself a couple of times. And all the best with printing. Enjoy your 3D printer. Get in touch with me either via email through the T4L website, or this chat section. Have a look in there as well. Throw some stuff in there, and I will try to keep up with you. Remember, I'm only working 2 days a week at the moment, so I do have delays at times that I can't get out to you. But let's try and keep these going as long as we can. And I'll catch up with you again next week. I might start to go fortnightly because we're going to start running out of a bit of material. Next week is network printing. The pros and cons of network printing. You can network the Inventor and the Adventurer. I'm going to show you how, but I'm also going to spend quite a bit of time telling you why I think you shouldn't, unless you're very good at maintaining. I will elaborate next week. Okay, boys and girls, I will see you next week. Does anybody have any questions?
Greg.
Yeah, mate.
The balloon powered dragster / car. Do you have the files for that?
The which?
The balloon powered dragster / car.
Oh,
challenges.
yeah. Send me a chat link, and I'll throw that to you. Now, hang on. The balloon powered dragster. The one I've got is the one that you put an egg in, and you put a crash barrier on the front of it, and you roll it down a hill. I don't have a balloon car.
Okay, cool.
As such, what I did, I alluded to at my point, was a water bottle rocket. Do you want the plans for that?
Yeah, yes, thanks.
Okay, put that in the chat with both of them. I'll have a look for a balloon car as well, and I'll also put up the egg one. We did that at Edutech one year, and we had a school come in, and they designed crash areas that would save the egg from destroying itself. It can get messy though when you slide it down, if you get lots of broken eggs, and some kids will actually go out of the way to make sure the egg breaks, but that's not part of the process. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Not a problem. I think we're all good. Okay, guys, we will see you next week. And Sian sent a message. Let me have a look at chats. Excellent, excellent. The dragster car balloon. Yep, okay, got that one. Excellent, not a problem. Okay, guys, we'll see you next week. Thank you very much for attending.